Rest areas along major highways look random during the day. Trucks scattered across parking lots, some angled, some backing in, others pulled through. But at night, the arrangement changes. Long-haul drivers don't park where there's space. They park according to patterns that aren't posted anywhere. These patterns aren't about preference. They're about managing risks that only become clear after spending months on the road. The logic behind where a driver chooses to stop for the night is built from repeated exposure to the same environments, the same vulnerabilities, and the same trade-offs between rest and awareness. Night parking follows rules that make no sense from the outside. But from inside a cab at 2 a.m., they're the difference between functional rest and waking up to a problem you didn't anticipate. Long-haul drivers operate on schedules dictated by hours of service regulations. After 11 hours of driving, they're required to take a 10-hour break. That break usually happens at night, and it usually happens in a truck stop or rest area designed for commercial vehicles. These locations aren't quiet. Refrigerated trailers run all night. Engines idle to keep cabs warm or cool. Other drivers come and go. Security is minimal. Lighting is uneven. Some areas are well lit near the fuel islands. Others fade into darkness at the edges of the lot. The environment creates specific pressures. Drivers need rest, but they also need to protect their cargo, their equipment, and themselves. They need to be close enough to facilities if something goes wrong, but far enough from high-traffic zones to avoid constant noise and movement. Most drivers arrive at these locations late. They've been driving for hours. They're mentally fatigued. They don't want to spend 20 minutes circling the lot looking for the perfect spot. So they rely on patterns they've learned from previous stops. The first pattern is about visibility. Drivers who park near the entrance or along main aisles are more visible to security patrols and other drivers. This reduces the likelihood of theft or tampering. Cargo theft from parked trucks is a persistent issue, especially in certain regions. Trailers carrying high-value loads, electronics, pharmaceuticals, consumer goods, are targets. Parking in well-lit, high-traffic areas makes a truck less appealing to someone looking for an isolated target. It's not foolproof, but it changes the calculus. Thieves prefer locations where they can work without being observed. A truck parked in the middle of a lot, surrounded by other vehicles, is harder to approach unnoticed. The second pattern is about exit routes. Experienced drivers avoid parking in spots where they'll be boxed in. If another truck parks directly behind them, they can't leave until that driver wakes up and moves. This becomes a problem if they need to leave early, or if something happens overnight that requires a quick departure. Pulling through a parking spot, driving forward into one space and continuing through to the next eliminates this risk. The truck faces forward, ready to leave. It's a small adjustment, but it removes a layer of uncertainty. Drivers who back into spots do so intentionally, positioning their trailer doors against a wall or another trailer to prevent unauthorized access. The third pattern is about proximity to facilities. Drivers need access to restrooms, food, and showers. But parking too close to the main building creates noise exposure. People coming and going, trucks idling at fuel pumps, announcement systems, all of it interrupts rest. Parking too far away means longer walks in the dark, often across poorly lit sections of the lot. Most experienced drivers choose a middle position, close enough to reach facilities quickly, far enough to reduce noise. It's a calculation they make without thinking, informed by dozens of previous stops at similar locations. The decision about where to park happens quickly. Drivers arrive tired. Parking lots fill up during peak hours. The longer they spend looking for a spot, the fewer options remain. They're scanning the lot as they enter, evaluating based on criteria they've internalized. They're looking for open space, but not isolated space. They're checking lighting, but also checking who's already parked nearby. They're assessing whether the spot allows for a clean exit, whether it's close enough to facilities, whether it's in a section of the lot that feels stable. That last point, stability, is harder to define. Some areas of truck stops are known for higher turnover. Drivers come and go frequently. Other areas attract longer-term parkers, people who are settling in for a full rest period. Higher turnover means more noise, more movement, more disruption. Longer-term areas are quieter, more predictable. Drivers also prioritize avoiding certain types of neighbors. Refrigerated trucks are loud. Parking next to one guarantees noise all night. Trucks with visible damage or disrepair suggest a driver who may not be following standard safety or security practices. It's not about judgment, it's about reducing variables. Weather changes the decision. In winter, drivers need to keep their engines running to maintain heat. This means they need to park where idling is permitted and where exhaust won't blow directly into another cab. In summer, they're looking for shade during late-day stops or positions that allow airflow around the truck. Wind direction matters. Parking downwind from fuel islands means breathing diesel fumes all night. Parking upwind from restrooms means dealing with odors. These aren't major issues individually, but they accumulate. A driver trying to get 7 or 8 hours of rest in a cab doesn't want to wake up repeatedly because of avoidable discomfort. There's also the question of duration. Some drivers are stopping for a full 10-hour break. Others are taking a shorter rest period before resuming their route. Longer stops justify more careful spot selection. Shorter stops prioritize convenience and speed. But regardless of duration, the decision is made under time pressure. Federal regulations require drivers to stop once they've reached their limit. They can't keep driving to find a better parking option. If a rest area is full, they have to make do with whatever's available, even if it's not ideal. This is where the unwritten rules become most important. When standard options aren't available, drivers rely on secondary patterns to make the best of a bad situation. The first unwritten rule is about trusting repetition. Drivers who run the same routes repeatedly learn which rest areas are reliable and which ones fill up quickly. They plan their stops based on this knowledge, timing their arrivals to secure better spots. If they know a particular rest area fills by 9 p.m., they'll push to arrive by 8:30, even if it means adjusting their schedule earlier in the day. This type of planning isn't taught in training programs. It's learned through trial and error. The second rule is about reading the lot before committing. Drivers don't just pull into the first open spot. They circle once, scanning for signs of problems. Broken glass near a parking space suggests recent theft or vandalism. Trucks parked at odd angles suggest drivers who are inexperienced or impaired. Empty spaces in otherwise full sections suggest a reason others are avoiding that area. None of these observations are definitive, but they inform the decision. A driver who sees broken glass might choose a different section of the lot, even if it means walking farther. The third rule is about maintaining situational awareness after parking. Experienced drivers lock their doors, close their curtains, and keep their keys within reach. They know what sounds are normal, other trucks starting up, footsteps on pavement, air brakes releasing, and which sounds are abnormal. This doesn't mean staying alert all night. It means being conscious of the environment enough to respond if something changes. A driver who hears someone trying door handles can react. A driver who hears nothing because they're parked in a stable, predictable spot can rest more effectively. The fourth rule is about cooperation. If a driver sees someone struggling to back into a tight spot, they'll often get out and help guide them in. If someone is parked poorly and blocking others, most drivers will knock and ask them to adjust rather than escalating. These small acts of cooperation maintain a functional environment. Rest areas work because drivers follow these unspoken agreements. When someone violates them, parking across multiple spots, idling unnecessarily loud, leaving trash, it disrupts the system for everyone. When drivers follow these patterns, the consequences are practical. They rest more effectively. They reduce their exposure to theft and vandalism. They're able to leave on schedule without delays. When they ignore these patterns, the consequences are equally practical. Poor spot selection leads to interrupted sleep. Parking in isolated areas increases vulnerability to cargo theft. Blocking exit routes leads to delays the next morning. The difference isn't dramatic, it's cumulative. A driver who consistently makes poor parking decisions loses rest quality over time. Fatigue builds, attention declines. The risk of accidents increases, not from any single bad decision, but from the erosion of functional routines. Carriers sometimes track which drivers report theft or security incidents. Patterns emerge. Drivers who follow experienced practices have fewer problems. It's not luck. It's pattern recognition and risk management applied consistently. The patterns long-haul drivers use when parking aren't visible to people passing through rest areas. They look like random choices made by tired individuals. But each decision reflects layers of experience, accumulated from months or years of night stops. These patterns only make sense from inside the work. From outside, they're invisible. From inside, they're the structure that makes night shift rest possible. The logic is simple once you see it, but you have to spend time in the environment to understand why it exists.